exercises and enhanced cooperation between NATO countries. The first panel today has as a topic for debate security and connectivity challenges in the Black Sea region, interdependencies and divergences. The panel is moderated by Mr. Silviu and Mrs. Mirela ATANASIU. Dr. Silviu is the director of the Global Studies Center, specializing in international relations, security studies, and geopolitical analysis. With extensive academic and practical experience, he is recognized for his insights into global security dynamics, Eastern European geopolitics, and conflict resolution. Dr. Nate leads research initiatives and collaborates with international institutions, contributing to policy discussions on global security issues. His work focuses on fostering understanding of complex international trends with publications and lectures that bridge the gap between academia and practical policy application. Mrs. Mirela ATANASIU activates as senior researcher within the Center for Defense and Security Strategic Studies with Karol I National Defense University, and he is an associate researcher at Óbuda University Doctoral School on Safety and Security Sciences, Africa Research Institute in Hungary. Dear moderators, it is your time, please.
May I take the floor? So, good morning, everyone. We are here to have hot debates and exchange ideas. So you are pleased, welcome to do that when you have the occasion, because we have such prominent speakers in here, and we should take notice of their very varied knowledge. So, first panel, it's about security and connectivity challenges in the Black Sea region. We know that this is a strategically significant area because it has a position at the crossroads of three big areas in our security environment. It has very great importance because of its energy resources, trade routes, but also because of the military activities that now are more important for our region. It's also a problem in here because the countries that are riparian to the Black Sea are not only members of NATO, but also non-member states of NATO, which builds mistrust and instability. So, our first panelist from today, which is a keynote speaker, and I have a deep respect for himself, it's Mr. Ioan Mircea PAqədU, which is a prominent Romanian politician and academic with a distinguished career in defense, foreign affairs, European policy. He served as a Romanian's Minister of Defense from 2000 to 2004. He was playing a key role in the country's NATO integration. Mr. PAŠKU was a member of the European Parliament from 2007 to 2019, where he contributed to foreign policy, security, and defense matters, notably as Vice Chair of the Committee of Foreign Affairs, and also with a background of political science, he has taught and published extensively on European security and international relations, influencing policy discussions within Romania and the EU. Sir, you have the floor, please.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Good morning. You mentioned that I am a politician. Well, I'm a retired politician because I work now in an institution which does not allow party politics, politics in general, which is the National Bank of Romania. Yes, indeed, I have the privilege of serving many years in various capacities, and in that I was able to form opinions, to reflect on many things, and now at this age, you know, to share it with you. And with respect to the topic at hand, I would say that I will have only 4 points. The first point is a thing which probably we haven't reflected too long on it, but I believe, you know, that we have to reflect. If we are in a situation like this today, which deteriorated rapidly in the last few years, is because the discipline in the international system has been weakened. Usually, discipline is being maintained by the most powerful countries or country in the system. And this is a situation which is not a premiere in the international system, because in the interwar period we had, unfortunately, a similar situation. Practically, both Britain and France could not control the security situation in Europe, and the revisionist powers like Germany were able to turn the balance of forces to their favor, and we all know the consequences. Today, the United States, due to a combination of factors, some of them objectives, others subjectives, is, I would say, not exercising the same degree of control which it used to do in the system. And here we are. Russia, a revisionist power, is wanting, you know, to get back what she felt she lost. One point of debate is that she didn't lose. We wanted something differently. When I see, you know, that they accuse NATO for accepting our countries into NATO, the truth is that we wanted to get into NATO. If you want to criticize NATO for something, is that they responded positively to our request, not because, you know, they opened up the doors and forced us into the European, Euro-Atlantic and European structures. So I would say, you know, that we have to reflect on this, the degree of discipline in the system which is weakening, and in such circumstances we have revisionist powers which try to make the most of it. In the case of the United States, yes, there is a combination of, I would say, isolationist tendencies, which are stronger and stronger. And probably this is cyclical, because those were present, you know, even after the First World War and prior to the Second World War. If it was not the attack at Pearl Harbor, the United States probably would have stayed and watched what was happening a longer time than they did. This a combination between, I said, isolationism. A second combination is this, shall we say, voluntary renounce to take care of the situation all over the globe. And the first signs have appeared during the first Trump administration, and probably they will be continued in the current administration or next administration, Trump administration. But it's also a division in the United States. So as long as the United States, which is the power which we all hope, you know, that they would continue to maintain discipline in the system, is turning inwardly and trying to sort out internal problems, all others would take advantage outside this, all others. And it's evident. And look now the situation with Russia. President-elect Trump has said that he would try to mediate the conflict there, early on. Washington Post is reporting, that they spoke, and the Russians denied. What would be the explanation of this situation? The only explanation is logical, because we do not know exactly what were the reasons, is that Russia would like to have a free hand. If they accepted that they talked to President-elect Trump, and President-elect Trump told them to slow down with their military activities in Ukraine, then, of course, they would have to somehow bow to that. This way, there was no conversation. Who told us? Nothing. Nobody has told us anything. And now it's my second point of the presentation. I believe, that they concentrate on two key objectives. One, a minor one, would be to get rid of the Kursk incursion by the Ukrainian forces in view of the future negotiations, territories, and so on and so forth. With the help of the North Koreans, well, that's one thing. But the most important objective, to my mind, I may be wrong, that's why we discuss afterwards. The main point to my mind is that they would like to occupy Odessa and the Bujak, closing Ukraine from the Black Sea, transforming Ukraine into a landlocked country, and controlling the Danube mouth, and then, also exercising pressure on Moldova, which will have elections, I don't know, February next year, which are very important. So this is probably the main aim for them to achieve before any negotiations would start. Now, I would like to remind you that in 1856, when the Crimean War ended, part of the peace arrangement in which Russia had been defeated has been to move northwards from the Danube, Russia. And two areas forming today the Bujak have been taken back from Russia, and Russia has been removed from the Danube. Danube had become a truly European river because the first major European project has been straightening up the Sulina branch and transforming it into maritime Danube. And that was a very important achievement, but the idea that the Russians should be removed from the Danube, because this was, important to all Europe, stays. And I think it retains the value. Now, I would say that if you look at the Black Sea, you look at the Middle East, and you see the only country separating the two areas is Turkey. Separating or bridging, it depends. But essentially, these two areas are open conflict today, and therefore, our eastern flank is confronted with a line of conflict from north to the south, which includes the Middle East, We should not treat Middle East something separate and as a potential, shall we say, combination with the Black Sea situation. And my last point, fourth point, is that for some time now, security will prevail in respect to any other aspect of economic, commercial, transportation, ideas related to the Black Sea. So if we think, that we would be able to exploit freely whatever gas deposits we have discovered there and so on and so forth, we'll have to think again, because security will have to first be established, and afterwards, create the conditions for peaceful exploitation, transportation, everything. So for some time from now on, security will prevail in this respect. That's why, last year, in the same conference, it was the 5th conference, and I addressed the same topic, which is a challenge because, sometimes you have to repeat yourself because the situation does not change that much to come up with new things. I said, that we would probably need, in the end, of a regime which will establish the situation in the Black Sea, taking into account the clash of so many interests in that area. So that concludes my initial presentation, and I'll stay here in the panel together with our colleagues. In case you have any questions, I might be able to respond. I will do so. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Outstanding as usual. Usually you are, for myself, I don't know for my colleagues in here, I'm like in a lecture all the time. I'm just closing my eyes and hear your voice. So everything is...
That's because I'm a professor, everything sounds like a lecture.
Yeah, probably, but also because of your wisdom. So I give the floor to Mr. Nate to present the panel for please.
Thank you. I want to congratulate the Romanian General Staff for this conference and for inviting us, and for their anniversary celebration of 165 years. Now we have an interesting panel related to security and connectivity challenges in the Black Sea region. Of course, the Black Sea, it's strategically significant due to its position as a crossroad of energy, resources, trade routes, and military activities. It has been for a while, and it continues to be an active line of confrontation, also in regional terms, but also in terms of global competition. Not so far from here in the East, Trump administration paid a particular attention to Central Asia, and the classified strategy was enforced during his first term related to Central Asia. Biden administration continued to implement it, and several analysts consider there are better grounds now to step to the next level in the region, and the Black Sea is somehow connected to the Caspian Sea and the Central Asia. We are facing with security challenges here due to Russian military presence, the illegal annexation of Crimea in 2014, and the war in Ukraine, due to its second phase in 2002, began in 2002. There are conflicts and instability, the so-called frozen conflicts or prolonged conflicts in the wider Black Sea region, in South Ossetia, in Abkhazia, and so on. We are dealing with hybrid threats and cyber threats, and NATO role is very important in the Black Sea region as a balancing actor and as a military enforcer. Other aspects are related to connectivity challenges. We mention here transportation and trade connectivity and trade corridors, and maybe we will speak today about prospects of developing such trade routes in the future, in connecting Europe with Central Asia and other Eastern actors. Of course, we are facing with infrastructure disparities. There are several questions that we have to raise, and also to suggest projects that will improve mobility and more dynamic economic game in the region. And the third issue is related to energy transit routes. The Black Sea is a vital route for energy supplies, including oil and natural gas pipeline. Of course, there are a lot of interdependencies and divergences. We see different interests. It's not easy to achieve a successful cooperation every time, but we need to create a balance between security and security cooperation or defense cooperation and economic cooperation in our region. I would like to invite our first panelist to deliver his insights on challenges in the Black Sea region. Brigadier General Kadir ÇELIK graduated from the Turkish Military Academy in 1997. He served as a platoon, company, battalion, and regiment commander in different units around Turkey. He's a graduate of the Staff College and the Joint Staff College. His NATO roles include doctrine selection, head at Joint Force Command Brunsum, and deputy military representative of Turkey at NATO headquarters. Additionally, he participated in the ISAF and RSM in Afghanistan and Operation Althea in Bosnia. Currently, Brigadier General ÇELIK serves as Strategy Director in the Turkish General Staff and holds master's degree in Politics and Social Sciences and Defense and Security Sciences. Dear General ÇELIK, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good morning, distinguished guests, High Excellency, my colleagues. It's a privilege to be here today at this important conference. I have no doubt this event will be highly beneficial, not only for audience, but also for us. Therefore, I want to thank those who organized this event, and I also want to congratulate Romania and Romanian Chief of Defense for her 165th anniversary. I want to start with commenting on one of your considerations about the divergence. In the booklet that you have already distributed, it states that Turkey balances its NATO commitments with a complex relationship with Russia. Actually, I have a little bit doubt about this comment because Turkey is the 7th biggest contributor in terms of budget out of 32 countries, 5th in terms of forces, one of 6 countries having a command in land, air, maritime domain, namely NRDC Turkey, Turmarfor, Turkish JFAC, and 2nd biggest army in the NATO. So we are everywhere in all 5 domains. Thus, our commitment to NATO is full and absolute. For the second part of the sentence about Turkey's complex relationship with Russia, actually, we believe that it's really open and everybody knows Turkey's relationship with Russia. Now, I want to go on by highlighting the importance of the Black Sea. The Black Sea holds a strategic, economic, and cultural importance for the surrounding region and beyond. As a vital gateway between Europe and Asia, it connects the Mediterranean via Turkish straits, supporting major trade routes and access to energy resources. The Black Sea is rich in natural gases, particularly oil and gas reserves, natural resources, I mean. Strategically, it holds a central position for regional security as it borders NATO and non-NATO countries, making it vital for maintaining stability and cooperation among various national interests. For these reasons, the Black Sea is a key area for international cooperation, economic development, and geopolitical stability. Having the longest coastline along the Black Sea, regional stability is not just a priority, but a necessity for sustaining Turkey's economic and security interests. Romania, can you hear me? I'm sorry. Romania, with its critical access to Danube, has much to gain from supporting and strengthening the principle of regional ownership, we think. Additionally, Romania's recent progress in natural gas extraction from Black Sea requires a peaceful environment to protect these investments and maintain confidence of international companies. Turkey also requires a stable Black Sea to continue its own energy projects. In the years ahead, Bulgaria is expected to begin benefiting resources from the Black Sea seabed as well. The measures taken to address today's threats may limit the future potential of these projects. Our approach to the Black Sea region is simple: maintaining trust, stability, and keeping the peace in the region. I believe this is vital not only for us, but also for all littoral and non-littoral states. Unfortunately, the annexation of Crimea in 2014, followed by an unacceptable invasion in 2022 by the Russian Federation, deteriorated the stability and security in the region. Since the annexation of Crimea, not starting from 2022, Turkey has been intensely providing political, practical, humanitarian support for a sovereign Ukraine that preserves its territorial integrity, including Crimea, Luhansk, Donetsk, Zaporizhzhia, and Kherson. Turkey has believed from the beginning that this war can end through dialogue while preserving Ukraine's territorial integrity and sovereignty, and continues its efforts to achieve this goal. Turkey is ready to take all kinds of facilitating steps, including mediation, for a just and lasting peace. Efforts continue to revive the Black Sea Grain Initiative and ensure a ceasefire that can open the door to peace between Ukraine and Russia. As known, Turkey facilitates negotiations and prisoner exchanges between parties. These efforts are continuing, and we are ready to start and reinforce. Turkey's Black Sea policy has 4 principles: regional ownership, full compliance with Montreux Convention, fostering regional initiatives, and contributions to NATO. I would like to elaborate more on the Turkish Straits and Montreux Convention here, starting from a historical perspective. Turkish Straits, namely Çanakkale and Istanbul Straits, have always been crucial not only for Turkey but for the peace and security of the entire region. Many nations have sought control over this area in the history, leading to conflicts and power struggles over time. Following World War I, the Treaty of Lausanne placed Turkish Straits under an international arrangement to maintain peace. However, as global tensions rose, it became clear that this system couldn't guarantee long-term stability. Recognizing the need for stronger measures to protect regional peace, nations came together to reassess this arrangement. This effort led to the signing of Montreux Convention in 1936, which placed upon Turkey the significant responsibility of ensuring stability in the Black Sea region. The Montreux Convention induced strict guidelines on the passage of warships, especially limiting those from outside the Black Sea region, and valued the littoral states. This framework helped maintain a regional balance of power, ensuring and requesting that Turkish Straits would be a gateway for peace rather than conflict. The outbreak of World War II also tested the Montreux Convention. During the war, Germany initially intended to bypass convention and started its negotiations and wanted to access the Black Sea directly. However, Turkey's firm commitment to Montreux, coupled with diplomatic efforts, prevented such breach, forcing Germany to find an alternative. And this makes, in the last 90 years, Montreux Convention is one of the longest treaty in the world. Germany had to disassemble its submarines and transport them via the Danube to reassemble in Constanza in the Black Sea. There were 6 German submarines during 1942 and 1944. Yet even these alternate approaches did not succeed due to Turkey's responsible and neutral stance. Germany was forced to sink their submarines in the Turkish waters and their crews arrested by Turkish officials. Those events clearly demonstrate Turkey's firm stance and determination maintaining stability in the region, even when facing significant pressure. Even today, Turkey very well shows the same logical determination. This is a clear historical sign that Black Sea security should be handled carefully, and this should be done by experienced hands. Turkey and Romania have strong political, economic, cultural relations and humanitarian bonds based on deep-rooted historical ties. Turkey fully understands Romania's sensitivities and security concerns. As an ally, Turkey stands with Romania and is ready to support. But it's important not to lose the sight of the bigger picture. Focusing only one aspect and risking the established balance could have unintended consequences. If the battle opened and the gin released, history shows us that what follows is often more conflict and devastation in this region. Montreux has been instrumental in maintaining peace and stability so far, and questioning its validity, which Turkey will never allow this, could open the door to new and unforeseen conflict. Romanian Foreign Minister Nicolae Titulescu's words during the Montreux Conference highlighted the trust Turkey had earned. He said, quoted, "The main reason that Romania's determined accession to convention is our unlimited confidence in Turkey's loyalty." Unquote. This conference went back centuries of trust, much like the positive remarks of the great Romanian leader Stefan the Great, which I don't want to tell what he said, but you can Google it. Today, the Montreux Convention remains key to peace in the Black Sea. Recent events, such as Russia's unlawful and unacceptable invasion of Ukraine, have raised concerns of conflict in the region. Yet Turkey's diplomatic efforts and commitment to peace and stability in the region have played an essential role containing the spread of war to the Black Sea, providing freedom of navigation for commercial vessels. By controlling the passage of warships through Turkish straits and prioritizing the safe passage of civilian shipping, Turkey is working to stabilize the Black Sea region, helping prevent further escalation. The concrete example of this implementation is, while 50 Russian ships passed through Turkish straits in 2021, no Russian warships have passed through the Turkish straits since 24th of February 2022. After the war, the floating moored mines of the coast of Ukraine created another significant risk in the Black Sea, so-called drifting mines. In order to eliminate these increasing mine threats, a mine countermeasure task group has been initiated by Turkey along with Romania and Bulgaria, namely MCM Black Sea. Memorandum of Understanding regarding the establishment of Mine Countermeasures Task Group was signed on the 11th of January 2024 in Istanbul by Defense Ministers of Turkey, Romania, and Bulgaria. On 1st of July 2024, we formally activated the task force in Istanbul, marking the beginning of a coordinated effort among Bulgaria, Turkey, and Romania to address the drifting mining threat. This initial activation, held from July 1st to 16, was followed by a second phase from September 2029, and concludes with the current phase running from November 3rd to 13th. Throughout these activations, our task force has engaged in key exercises: Bulgarian-led Breeze, Turkish Nusret, and Romania's Poseidon, which ended, I think, yesterday, all aimed at enhancing our mine countermeasure skills. Looking forward, Bulgaria will assume the command of the task force on 2nd of January 2025, with 2 activations already planned for the coming year. This initiative not only strengthens our operational capabilities, but also highlights close cooperation among Black Sea riparian states, reinforcing our commitment to regional stability and security. Another recent development is the planned establishment of a commander task force for the Black Sea region, uniting Romania, Bulgaria, and Turkey in a coordinated security effort under NATO flag. With its headquarters, the task force will focus on enhancing joint maritime readiness and ensuring stability. Turkey will hold the command for the initial 4 years. This arrangement highlights the collective commitment of Black Sea allies to safeguard regional stability and address evolving maritime challenges. Of course, security initiatives in the Black Sea are not limited to the aforementioned ones. Turkey has led another regional initiative with the participation of littoral states to ensure peace and stability in the Black Sea, called as Operation Black Sea Harmony, that was launched by Turkey in 2004, primarily as a national operation. Subsequently, the operation transformed into multinational structure. Operation Black Sea Harmony, which is still ongoing, is mainly conducting reconnaissance to deter and disrupt the potential threats of terrorism, illicit trafficking of weapons of mass destruction by demonstrating a sustained naval presence. Also, recognized pictures in the Black Sea is being exchanged with NATO in order to increase the maritime situational awareness. As of today, Turkey provides 70% of the recognized air picture and more than 60% of the recognized maritime picture, not only to NATO, but also for the use of our allies in the Black Sea. This also contributes to our Black Sea neighbors for their situational awareness. On the discussion of non-littoral nations' increased presence in the Black Sea raises question about the balance between regional security and the unnecessary escalation. Regional allies like Turkey, Romania, and Bulgaria can maintain security in the Black Sea without the need and expanded presence from outside, which could heighten tensions. The ongoing war showed us that Russia's ability to control the Black Sea is limited, and its current operational approach indicates the balance of powers in the Black Sea is well understood. Russia's inability to reinforce its navy, its struggles to project power in the Mediterranean, especially in the East Mediterranean, its reduced presence in the region, and ongoing maintenance and repair problems, all of these challenges derive from Turkey's firm stance. Further escalation from outside powers risks unnecessary provocation. Adding more external actors introduce complexity than stability. We believe NATO's Article 5 already provides sufficient assurances for allies without the need for increased military presence. Turkey is also ready to contribute more. Additionally, NATO, its 3 Black Sea allies and 2 partners, and I want to add one more in the wide context of the Black Sea, when I yesterday listened to Ms. Ahmedova about her considerations of energy transformation to Europe, holds a stronger position than Russia in the Black Sea. We should place our trust in our resources, alliance, and strong neighborhood relations. These priorities, along with a focus on strengthening strategic communications, will enhance our collective security and resilience. Black Sea nations must also carefully balance regional security with economic connectivity. As the ongoing war in Ukraine has shown, economic strength is key to nations' resilience and sustainability during crisis. While security is essential, a stronger focus on economic development and trade connectivity can fortify security efforts against possible threats by enhancing economic stability and logistical resilience. Additionally, energy cooperation among Black Sea nations can serve as a unifying factor. By focusing on energy interdependencies, we can leave political fractions aside and enhance both energy resilience and economic stability. In conclusion, maintaining stability in the Black Sea region requires a careful balance between security, economic development, and cooperation among neighboring nations. With the collaborative efforts of Black Sea nations, we can strengthen regional resilience and foster lasting peace. So thank you for allowing me in this important discussion and for your continued dedication to a secure and prosperous Black Sea region. Back to you.
Thank you for your insights. I would kindly ask our speakers to limit their presentation to 10 minutes. Otherwise, we will sacrifice the Q&A session, and I won't encourage you to close the straits before starting the panel. Thank you very much. So, my colleague, please introduce the next speaker. Thank you.
Okay, let's go to the next speaker. Our speaker for today, Lieutenant General Volodymyr Gavrilov, which is a former Deputy Minister of Defense of Ukraine with extensive experience in defense and strategic operations. He has served in various high-level command and operational roles within the Ukrainian armed forces, playing a crucial part in Ukraine's military modernization efforts and defense strategy, particularly in the context of Ukraine's ongoing conflict and cooperation with NATO allies. Myself, I had the pleasure to see Lieutenant General Gavrilov in another speeches, and I hope it will be the same amazing as last day.
Okay, I will try to be fast and straight to the point. First of all, I'm representing Ukraine here. We are at war. And we have, fortunately, a lot of partners in this war, including Romania, Turkey, Bulgaria, who are present at the panel. And we can talk about the security, connectivity, and other things in this region only in the context of how to finish this conflict. And only after that we can talk about the future stability, trade routes, Silk roads, and other things. Without Russia being punished for the drama we have in Ukraine, never future is accepted for this region. We have to be very clear that without Russia punishment, there will be no security in this region. Ukraine is in the front line to do that, supported by our partners in Europe, United States, and others in the world. And this region, Black Sea region, become the hostage of the Putin's ambition to restore the Russian Empire. We have to keep it in mind. It's not about the NATO expansion first. It's about Ukraine to be independent and free nation, which is not acceptable for Putin's mindset. And I still remember the words of Zbigniew Brzezinski, who was a national security advisor to President Reagan in 1988, before the Soviet Union collapsed. He said that without Ukraine, Russia ceases to be Eurasian empire. That is the core of the conflict. It's not about the territory of Crimea or east of Ukraine. It's about existence of the country, which is a real threat to Russian existence in terms of Russian mindset they have now. This problem has long historical roots, and in Ukraine we understand it, and we know how to fight Russians. We are maybe the only country in this region who stood up. Is ready to fight because we have a strong civil society. We have a motivation of our military. The only challenges we have It's about the supply of ammunition, armament, and all other things. Fortunately, we have a support, critical basic support from our partners in NATO and the United States and the regional powers here as well. At the same time, Russia, the Russian regime leadership, they become the hostage of the strategic miscalculations when they decided to fix the problem with Ukraine in a very short period of time in 2022 with so-called special military operation. So they didn't expect that kind of resistance of Ukrainian people. They didn't expect that there is a civil society in Ukraine, phenomenon which is not familiar to Russian people because they don't have a civil society, they have a population which is following the propaganda instruments of the leadership. They underestimated the support from the other countries in the struggle of Ukrainian people. They didn't accept that a number of sanctions been introduced to them. And now they are hostages of that situation. They don't know what to do. The only thing they can imagine is just to have a kind of victory. What kind of victory they are still trying to understand and speculate. Because without that so-called victory, they can't exist as a regime, Putin regime in Moscow. They have to present the people in the country why they're having so heavy losses in this country, in Ukraine, why they are doing that for more than 2.5 years, why such a big on paper country like Russia can't do anything with Ukraine in 2.5 years. With Ukraine, we don't have natural resources like oil and gas. We don't have that economy like Russia had before the invasion. But they can't do anything with us because in the core of this struggle is the people. People and support from other nations who share the values of freedom and territorial integrity. That's why before moving to any kind of arrangements in the Black Sea, we have to finish this conflict in Ukraine with very tough positions of everybody who are taking part in that. Ukraine, number one, of course, we are doing our job. It's our blood, it's our people. For others, we expect to be next to us, standing tough, demonstrating readiness to Russians that there is no way for military solution in Ukraine, providing all necessary supply and economic support to us in Ukraine to achieve the goals of this. And to be honest, we understand that Russia, the leadership in Russia, KGB-minded people, and Putin and his entourage, his close team is a KGB guys, they don't like uncertainties. And they don't like people who are decided to fight them. They're very scared to be killed. They prefer to move against the groups and nations they can predict what is going to be. For them, it's easier to fight with European Union countries because they understand the mindset. But for them, it's a real problem to be in a situation they don't know who are the leaders, what is going on, and why this nation decided to fight. That's why the only way to stop them to demonstrate their readiness to fight and to do it on the ground. And if we do that on the ground, believe me, it's only a matter of time, and not a long time, before we can see the collapse of this regime in Moscow. It's not through a revolution or something like that, through some kind of event. Like nobody expected that in 1991, in one day, a huge country with a huge resources, with a huge army, Soviet Union, collapsed in one day because of different courses which other experts and analytics in the world didn't keep in mind. But the only way to do it is every day defeating the enemy on the ground with all resources we have here in Europe, in the United States. And this is war of economics. And for you to know, to compare what it's all about, the GDP of Texas is more than Russian. The GDP of California is more than Russian. I am not talking about Germany or France or Great Britain. There is no way for Russia to sustain this war. The only way we have to do now to demonstrate our readiness, resolveness, and success on the ground. It's all about political will. It's all about support from civil societies in Europe and United States. And I think we are on the way to the victory, not paying attention to any kind of conspiracy theory which exists in this world. Thank you.
It was a very, for me, it was a kind of emotional speech because all I can see in this war is that the Ukrainian people, it's giving its all in order to kind of support all of us, European, in the European countries. So our next speaker, it's Major General Remus-Hadrian BONDOR, acting as Chief of the Strategic Planning Directorate since July 2022. Between July 2023 and June 2024, he was acting Deputy Chief of Defense for Operation and Training. He is a distinguished graduate of the US Army 202 War College, Carlisle, Pennsylvania, where he completed a Master of Strategic Studies and the Joint Warfighting Advanced Studies program. Sir, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, and thank you, the Romanian Military Thinking, for inviting me to be part of this distinguished panel. Sir, I'm all the time a little bit afraid when I stay with you in a panel because you have very sharp questions and you have a lot of experience to ask them. And also, I'm very happy that I met old friends and new friends, and will try to make this panel as interesting as possible. So I think, General ÇELIK, I will go way back in time when the first Greek colonists reached the shores of the actual Black Sea. They've called it Pontus Axinos. That means the unhospitable sea, probably because of the warring party, the warring tribes that were around, probably because of the specificity of the Black Sea, probably because of the weather, I don't know. But in about 200 years, when the first colonies were settled, they've changed the name and they called it Pontus Euxinus, that means the hospitable sea. Now, the wide Black Sea region is unhospitable. It radiates conflict, it radiates instability, and everything that we are doing at global level must transition towards an hospitable sea that will radiate cooperation, prosperity, safe environment. So from here, I want to start. We are talking about security and connectivity. That covers a lot of topics. What I want to refer now is the fact that the war in Ukraine, the aggression of Russia, changed the face of Europe and the face of the world. So nobody was thinking 5 years ago that a war can break in Europe. Nobody, neither in NATO, in the EU, in our governments, was thinking that one nation will forcibly enter into another country. And it's strange because I think the war in the wider Black Sea region started in 2008 with the aggression against Georgia. And then it continued in 2014 with the annexation of Crimea. And then in 2015 with the break of the Donbass-Luhansk region. So it was a sort of international immobility and incapacity to deal with Russia during these events and after these events. I think for the first time in 2022, the international community stood up together and opposed Russia, starting with economic sanctions, military aid towards Ukraine, supporting the Ukrainian refugees, receiving them. And an example was Romania, when humble people receive a sad woman with their children in their houses on their way towards a better place when the war broke and when the air strikes were performed against peaceful villages and towns. So that was the first time, but Russia started back in 2008. So the Black Sea region was not a place of stability, and I think you mentioned it is a very interesting environment. We have here riparian states that are NATO members, part of them, 3 of them, EU members, 2 of them, NATO partners, 2 of them, and an aggressor. So it is completely different when we look to the map than it is in the Baltics, for example, or in other, let's say, in the Adriatic or in other seas that have the same, let's say, almost the same size and the same configuration. So the region is very complex in terms of political establishment, in terms of being or not being part of the international organization, and in terms of the real situation, as I mentioned, an aggressor and a victim. I fully reassure you, sir, that Romania is doing whatever necessary to continue to support Ukraine in their endeavor, because it's an existential war for Ukraine, and it's a war of aggression from Russia. So it's completely strange why and how we reached to this position, but now it happens. So I go back and say that what I've learned during my career, that the operational and strategic environment have one constant and myriads of variables. So the constant is that is unpredictable, it's complex, it's ambiguous. So this is the constant, it's continuing change. When we go back to the security, we are talking about the security in the wider Black Sea area. This security for Romania is supported by 3 main pillars. We are NATO member, we are EU member, and we have a strategic partnership with the US. So these are the 3 pillars. So we consider that the security of Romania is linked with the security provided by NATO, with Romania as being part of this. So all the members should come together and bring security in the, as we call it, secure area of responsibility. So the Supreme Commander has an area of responsibility which includes the Black Sea. On the other hand, EU brings complementarity with NATO efforts in terms of security. And I think connectivity is one of these parts. So the first is that the term military mobility, I think it was coined by General Ben Hodges back in 2016 when he came with a military Schengen, military mobilities, talking about the rapid and swift flow of forces from west to east, from north to the south, in order to face the 2 main threats that NATO has. So I'm talking about Russia and the terrorist groups. It is important for all of us as members to perceive these 2 threats identical. Doesn't matter geography, even though in military operation geography matters, but the threat needs to be perceived the same. So for Romania, the terrorist groups needs to be perceived as a threat, and for a country that is far from Russia, they need to perceive Russia as a threat as we perceive it. Talking about geography and the geography matters, I'm going back to military mobility. So military mobility is a term that is meant to ensure a swift and rapid movement of personnel, material, and assets, including in short notice and at large scale, within our geographical boundaries, but beyond this. And here comes connectivity. So it is important to develop your own mobility corridors, but it's important to connect these mobility corridors in order to have a rapid flow of forces in order to face a security situation. So connectivity and security are completely linked. Connectivity and security are also linked with economical objectives. And it was mentioned already that Romania is on the verge to develop some gas exploitation into the Black Sea. So a Black Sea that is unhospitable cannot support a peaceful economical development. This is why security is important. If we talk about military mobility at NATO level, so what happened in NATO in the last 2.5 years and a little bit before the conflict is seismic. So we've started from a graduate response plan to a family of plans that is designed to deter and to defend the Euro-Atlantic area. These plans have now a granularity that is needed to face a threat from Russia or from terrorist groups. And these plans have an annex or a part that is most important. It's enablement. Lessons identified from Ukraine showed us that the rate of consumption, the rate of losses in terms of medical terms, are way higher than we planned for. So we need to develop this, we call them mobility corridors, to ensure the flow of forces, first of all for their deployment in order to deter an aggression, and then to transition into a sustainment in face of a prolonged conflict, and meantime to be prepared to evacuate population or wounded from the first line back to their home countries. So this is a huge complex operation, and our colleagues in logistics, they are working very hard to put everything in place. Moreover, they plan for the worst case situation. They do not plan because I'm a planner, so in planning, hope is not a tool and is not an end. So you plan for the worst case situation. What Romania have done, Romania engaged in building up the planned mobility corridors, and we've already signed letters of intent with Greece, Bulgaria, and Romania. Also, we have a letter of intent with Turkey, Bulgaria, and Romania. We've signed a letter of intent on the EU side with Italy, Albania, North Macedonia. So all these corridors will cover roads, railways, and sea lines of communication. Because it's a complex operation. Meantime, inside the country, we have to develop together as a whole of government approach the seaports of disembarkation, the railway station, the airport of embarkation and disembarkation. All of these must move in the future with a dual role. They need to be for the society in terms of economic connectivity, in terms of a flow of goods, but also they need to be designed and prepared to serve the security topic. And His Excellency mentioned that now security start to prevail. So when we develop, let's say, an infrastructure project, we need to think from the beginning what use we'll have in terms of defending our country. And meantime, we must understand that defending our country, we defend the alliance. When we go to the Black Sea, and I want to thank Brigadier General ÇELIK for mentioning the MCM Black Sea, it is one important initiative. It is open to all allies, and it has a meaning now to train ourselves, because when the war will end, it will be a huge, huge operation in demining the Black Sea in order, again, to support our economic interests, both Bulgarian, Turkey, and Ukrainian interests in the Black Sea. So that prepares a next step. In terms of CTF Black Sea, we support a rotational system both geographically and in command in order to share the burden and to use these forces whenever necessary. On the security now, what I want to stress again that geography matters, infrastructure is important, and we need to link these two terms, so security with connectivity, through the mobility, military mobility. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, General, for your insights. Now I would like to invite one of our panelists, Velina ÇELIK. She is a geopolitical strategist and certified strategic foresight expert with over 25 years of professional experience and academic background in the field of security and defense. Before founding her geopolitical consulting company, FACE, entitled FACE, Velina ÇELIK served as the director of the Austrian Institute for European and Security Policy in Vienna, Austria. And I would like to challenge a little bit Velina, and also to thank for her availability to be with us today. I want to first to praise her for her genuine term that was launched in the international relations arena of the Dragon Bear. And I would want to ask you, do we have a binomial actor that resorts to Black Sea landscape modeling when it comes to Russia and China partnership? In your assessments, you inspiringly stated that the Russia-Ukraine war has the valence of a proxy war or a proxy confrontation between China and the US. What limitations and opportunities do you see for the Black Sea region?
Thank you very much. It's a great pleasure being here with you today. I would like to congratulate, of course, on the anniversary of the 165 years since actually the existence of the defense stuff. And you can clearly see how important it is that we have this kind of conferences where obviously military and civilian stuff have to come together and work together on these highly topical geopolitical issues. Now, I'm in a very luxury position because my colleagues already outlined most of the ongoing developments, and I would like to focus very shortly on the systemic level because strategy is my level of expertise, then on the regional ones, and then to shortly answer your question. And don't worry, I'm trained into consulting, so I have to be able to present my points in less than 3 minutes. I will take a little bit more than 3 minutes. So, systemic level. What I would like to know from all of you, because no planning makes sense, no preparation makes sense, if we do not know the answer to this question, and that is the question about the global order. What kind of global order, what kind of global geopolitical context are we operating in? Are we trying to survive in? Are we trying to thrive in? I haven't gotten an answer to that. Now let me give you my short answer to that. My working hypothesis right now, and from the last 10 years, has been a bifurcation of the global system. Why bifurcation and not bipolarization? Because never before, in the last 250 years of industrial revolutions, global powers, globalization, we had this kind of unprecedented scale and scope of interconnectedness. That is why bifurcation, because we do not talk only about the military and the security domain, we talk also about the trade, economic, commodities domain. There is an obfuscation between economics and security, meanwhile, what is now the modern political economy. So that means that bifurcation is centered around the decoupling, which now is going to be further accelerated between United States and China. And second important point, which we mostly overlooked here in the West, is the emergence of a modus vivendi. And I'm not saying strategic alliance, I'm not saying military pact, I'm saying modus vivendi of strategic coordination in all relevant systemic domains between China and Russia. There has been, that has started in 2013, 2014, and since then has been thriving, and now we see actually the first concrete results out of it. One of them being an extinction war. I mean, the Russian war against Ukraine is not just about subjugation or about creating new facts on the ground in the global arena. It's an extinction war par excellence in the international law and international relations, which will completely change the geopolitical map. And this war will have not been possible without the modus vivendi of coordination between China and Russia. That means that if we assume rightfully that the Russian president Putin has miscalculated on many things while starting a full-scale war, one thing where he did not miscalculate is the comprehensive long-term support coming from China for this war. Now, obviously, this means also, when we are still at the systemic level, it means concrete consequences, especially here for us, because our topic is the Black Sea. Now, that means that the Black Sea countries, and in a larger context, starting from the Scandinavians, because we have now new NATO members, and then along the line of the eastern flank of NATO, up until Turkey, we have actually the front line, the new Iron Curtain 2.0. This is the new dividing line between two worlds, in which this is going to be the gray zone for all kind of warfare, conventional and non-conventional. And we've seen actually already, and now I'm moving to the regional level, that is the second level of analysis, we've seen actually right from the beginning of the Russian war against Ukraine that it's not only about Ukraine, that actually the non-conventional dimensions of the warfare have been already exercised on the old continent. Weaponization of commodities, and I do not mean only the grain commodities and the energy commodities, but in general, actually preventing countries from getting their exports and then trying to turn into a powerhouse in, let's say, for instance, grain exports, like it is the case with Russia, but also preventing Ukraine from exporting its existential commodities to third countries in order to use the political leverage, for instance, when it comes to international organizations. We have a new precedent in international relations, which is the nuclear blackmail. Hasn't been used before. It's going to be obviously used in the future, and we probably will have more nuclear powers countries in the future, starting with this year or maybe in the next years. There again, we see this is now the case starting with this war. And last but not least, weaponization of migration. Just this morning I read actually the new report in Germany. Now German MPs are being prepared for the next wave of millions of refugees if, let's say, the 24 hours plan by the president-elect Trump is going to be presented about any kind of ceasefire in Ukraine, and then obviously if any kind of ad hoc peace plan is going to be pushed by the Americans. Now, let me finish with the local, with the local realities here. What does it mean if we are in an Iron Curtain 2.0 / Cold War 2.0 scenario? Is this a good thing? Is this a bad thing? Now, the hard facts on the ground are that we were promised, if you read the first strategic paper of the European Union from 2003, this is the ESS, the European Security Strategy, never have we lived in such security, stability, and prosperity in Europe. That is the first paragraph. Now, if you compare with 20 years later, you see, never have we had this scale of insecurity, instability, and risk for our prosperity, for our citizens, for our political decision makers, for our military staff. Second point, if you compare the numbers of military conflicts and wars after the end of the Cold War, collapse of the Soviet Union, and take the number now, never has been the number of military conflicts and wars so high as it is right now in 2024. And we are dealing in the Black Sea arena not with one, but with the interconnection of several military conflicts and wars. Like I said, Extinction War. Then we have actually for the very first time Black Swan event in the Red Sea, because for the very first time the Americans and the Brits and the Europeans are not able actually to securitize the maritime trade because of the actions of the Houthi, and practically commercial ships have to bypass the Red Sea with significant consequences for the neighboring countries. The biggest collateral is Egypt, obviously. And then we have also the military conflict, not only in Gaza with also Hamas and Israel, but we have also the bigger regional escalation with Iran, Israel. All of this is interconnected. All of this has directly something to do with us here in the Black Sea. Now, let me end with a few concrete recommendations, because yes, it's good that we talk about all these diagnoses and all this, analysis is important, but when you go to the doctor and the doctor tells you the diagnosis, you want to also have a clear idea what to do. And we've heard already about recommendations coming from the military representatives. I'm not going to step into their shoes, but a lot can be done also on the civilian side, especially when it comes to impact, influence on political decision makers, influence on businesses in industry. First and foremost, if we assume that this is going to be Iron Curtain 2.0, I mean, obviously it's moving eastwards, we need to, of course, create this north-south connectivity. It was mentioned. It's dual-use connectivity. It's for military use. It's also for commercial use. We don't have it because over the last 60 years, East-West was actually the key, the buzzword, in terms of pipelines, in terms of transport routes, in terms of any kind of connectivity. This is a must, and we have initiatives for that. What happened to the 3 Seas initiative? I mean, there was a big conference here in Romania, if I remember correctly, last year. So these kind of forums are important to create awareness for our population and for our political decision makers. They are a little bit slow in terms of catching up with the geopolitical realities. Second, we have the institutions. 3 Seas initiative is something that is supported by the Americans and also, meanwhile, supported by the European Union, because it's an initiative between member states. And obviously together with Turkey, because you need to understand that in this new competition, swing states, this is a new term, something similar like the Dragon Bear or like the BRICS. Swing states, Turkey is going to be one of the key swing states. A very important middle power with a lot of wildcard potential in all these configurations. Third important point, we cannot be isolated here in Europe. That means, given the fact now that if we have Iron Curtain, a lot of the corridors from Asia to Europe are not going to function properly. Right now, the northern corridor connecting China with Russia to Europe is not working, as we know. The middle corridor is being propagated. The international north-south corridor between India, South Caucasus, Iran, South Caucasus, Russia has become operational after 20 years. We have launched the Global Gateway here, but I don't think that anybody has any idea about the Global Gateway. And now there is a new project that is the IMEC corridor, which connects Europe with the Gulf states via the Eastern Mediterranean, and then with India. And all of these connectivities are something that is going to be in competition. As I said, I mean, everything, we are living in the age of weaponization of everything. So that means that commercial projects like this, which are worth billions of euro, are going to be in competition with rivals projects. And we need to accommodate interests of regional powers. Like the case of IMEC, we cannot, for instance, isolate Turkey, because then we will see other regional competitions. A final point, we cannot talk about Black Sea security when we have the reality of Balkan countries not being members of the European Union, and then we practically are building infrastructure, new infrastructure, while for all of you who have been traveling there, you know for a fact that there is no infrastructure whatsoever. So closing the chapter on enlargement for the Balkan countries, pursuing accelerated membership for the 3 new candidates, and then obviously free trade agreements with the immediate neighbors, especially when it comes to free trade with Gulf states and free trade with India. I think that this is just the future, because, as I said, a lot of the direct immediate border with Russia, and now obviously we are going to have a much more assertive, much more aggressive player, is going to be blocked. So we are not going to have these terrestrial connectivities. Final point, I know it's too much, but we are going to have a new terrain, new battle on the old continent. So it's not going to be only about Eastern Europe and Mediterranean, it's going to be also about the Arctic, because this is the next maritime connectivity that China and Russia are building together to shorten the way of trade and to control, of course, not just key commodities, but this is the shortest access to satellites in space. Yesterday was mentioned, space is back, actually. This has always been a dimension of warfare. Cyber is the new one, but cyber cannot operate without space. And the shortest distance to the satellites is actually in the Arctic. So who controls the Arctic controls also the access to the satellites, and can actually exercise direct influence on the rivals.
Thank you very much, Velina. If my colleague wants to invite the next speaker, please.
Thank you, Silviu. So our next speaker in this panel is Julian PAWLAK, who is a research associate at the Helmut Schmidt University, University of the Federal Armed Forces Hamburg, and the German Institute for Defense and Strategic Studies. In his work, he focuses on questions pertaining to strategy, security, and defense in Northern and Eastern Europe and the Baltic Sea region in particular. Sir?
Yeah, thank you very much, and thank you very much for the invitation. Pleasure to being here. Yeah, since we're coming to an end, I will do a concise impulse here. And for this panel, we had a number of leading questions, which I will address. And even though I work for the German Bundeswehr, this is my personal capacity as a researcher. So the leading question, or one of the leading questions was, is NATO's increased presence in the Black Sea region a source of stability or provocation? I think when we talk about stability, first and foremost, we have to consider Ukraine and Ukraine's success for being the main pillar for stability in the Black Sea region. If there's no successful Ukraine, the opponent or the aggressor will be encouraged and will be able and will be thinking to be able to conduct power to destabilize the region and even further. Of course, in parallel to this, NATO is a needed pillar of stability. But NATO needs to be coherent and needs to be able to deter, to defend, and if necessary, also to defeat an enemy who might be aggressive in this region. This is important because if the opponent, if a nation, if a leadership only speaks in terms of power, you can't answer with weakness. This is not possible. This is the part of international relations, the international arena we see today, we saw in the past. So even if your action is considered as weakness, this creates vulnerability, this creates destabilization, and not the other way around. So NATO membership and its pact of collective defense is clear, and strengthening the NATO pillar in the region should be an aim from all nations, even further, to create this part of stability. Yesterday, I remember a colleague said, like, trying not to escalate is basically escalating, because you show this kind of weakness. And I totally agree. And I even know that in Germany there are many voices who are contrary to this and who talk about this kind of de-escalation. But this is not the point here, in my point of view, and this is not the right way. Because if there's no coherent approach by NATO members, by EU members, by partner nations, then this won't work out. And this only works out if they act together, because otherwise opponents, aggressive states, big powers in the globe will act against one by one and piece by piece, and that's why there's a need to stay even more together. Another question was, can Turkey act as a bridge between Russia and NATO in the Black Sea region? And as we heard just now by the general, and also yesterday by the ambassador from Turkey, that the Turkish view on diplomacy is a very important one, and I think we should also appreciate the role of Turkey in that regard. But if you talk about a bridge, you always need both sides who want to have this bridge built and also who wants to cross the bridge. And if we talk about Russia in particular on this right now, I don't see this right now as an important point to really have a bridge where both sides want to cross it. There's, as mentioned before, the case of Ukraine first in this regard. So making a bridge, I'm not sure, being more or continue this role as a mediator, maybe rather this for the time being. That also leads to the point that the more coherent allied approach, also with Turkey, appreciating this Turkish position in the region and beyond, is important, even though sometimes I can, or as I understand also perspectives in the rest of Europe or of the NATO, sometimes have difficulties of understanding the Turkish position. So this leads to the point of showing that we need more coherence, more understanding also of each other's positions, even though we are allied nations. Another question was about energy cooperation. Is it possible among Black Sea countries despite political tensions? Of course, it is possible, it is desirable, but also relates to the question before. With some nations, for sure, this is very important right now, but also with some other nations, there are bad experience, there have been bad experience, and so for the time being, I don't see that there will be energy cooperation with everyone for right now. Also, even further, this goes beyond Russia. We also have for energy cooperation the actor China, who's also a state actor, but with state involvement also comes dependencies on those actors. So be it Russian or Chinese projects and involvement in the region, they always include also geopolitical risks, even corruption, bad governance, environmental threats, all comes together, disinformation. So we always need to take care, okay, in what kind of energy cooperation we are engaging, or we are also getting dependencies. And again, in the recent years, we saw also where German energy dependencies on a certain country have brought us and now are hardly to recreate in a healthy manner. Maybe as a final question we had, how should Black Sea states address the threat of hybrid warfare in the region? And hybrid warfare is manifold. Yesterday we heard a lot about hybrid warfare in terms of societies, of cybersecurities, how those are threatened, and those who are addressed by state actors around the globe, basically to destabilize, to create disinformation, misinformation, and basically to destroy this coherence which I was talking before. So this is not limited to the Black Sea states. This is a case for the collective West, EU, NATO, partner nations. We should address this hybrid warfare, of course, through comprehensive and integrated approach, which is not limited only to governments, to militaries, to police forces or justice. This is where the civil societies are at the same level of importance in this regard, because not any agency or country is only able to deal with this alone. This needs to work hand in hand. The other side of hybrid warfare which we have is also the part of energy warfare or critical infrastructure we have. This is a topic which gained huge attendance in the recent years, because it might have been of interest in some parts of research or also the military, but on the political sphere, critical infrastructure, critical maritime infrastructure, for instance, which also will be a more growing role in the Black Sea region, wasn't so much in the political agenda or attention until 2 years ago. And this is basically a similar approach, you can say, as for societal security in terms of hybrid threats. And we follow there a threefold approach, which is basically the two we talked a lot about, of resilience, of redundancies also, but the third is also repair capabilities. Because if a actor sees that not only you have a lot of resilience in the part and a lot of redundancies, but you are also able to cope with destroyed installations or destroyed structures or destroyed supply lines, and you are able to cope with this in a couple of weeks, for instance, to be back again on track. This is also a huge deterrent to show it's not worth to attacking or destroying our energy supplies. So this is a manifold approach to deal with those hybrid threats and attempts, but this is needed to also conduct with government actors, with military, police, enforcement, private sector, who all needs to act hand in hand, because there's no way only the governmental side or only the economical side can deal with those state-backed threats to this infrastructure. This is only possible when they work hand in hand, and we're trying now to really establish those connections, to share data, share information, to create this shared awareness. This to this final question, so just in conclusion, yeah, addressing the security and connectivity challenges is just requiring of a very comprehensive approach of all nations together, of all actors together, governmental, non-governmental, societal, because otherwise there's no way that in this connected world, interconnected world, or in the area, this will work otherwise. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Julian, for your insights. We propose you to extend with 10 minutes our panel and to sacrifice 10 minutes of your coffee break. I will invite Dr. Antonia Colibașanu to deliver her insights. She's a preeminent geopolitical analyst and a very good friend of mine, and expert in international relations, known for her expertise in global risk assessment, economic security, and strategic intelligence. She's currently a senior analyst at the Geopolitical Futures in the United States and has previously held leadership roles with Stratfor. Her work focuses on European and Eurasian geopolitics, analyzing political and economic trends impacting security and stability. Antonia, you often wrote about the geopolitical node phenomena in the Black Sea and in other areas. What's the role of the geoeconomy in the Black Sea? What's the Black Sea place in the broader geopolitical equation? Should the EU take a more active role in addressing security and mobility challenges in the Black Sea?
Thank you very much. It is always uncomfortable to stand between a panel talk and a coffee break, but I'll do my best to shorten those 10 minutes. And with that question, when we are talking geoeconomics, now considering what Velina said and what my colleague on the right said, Julian, I feel like the month of November has extended into geopolitics with a sort of a Black Friday kind of season for international corridors. We have a lot to think about, right? We have a lot of alliances to think about. We have a lot of resources to think about. We have a lot of topics to think about. And to use a quotation in faction nowadays, it's a huge work that we have going forward, right? But I would say that we need to set priorities. And we need to start setting priorities considering the Black Sea is a geopolitical node of Eurasia, the other geopolitical node of Eurasia being the South China Sea. And with that in mind, I'll throw another acronym at you because I have 10 minutes, so I can do that. CRINCS, China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea, or KERN. I prefer KERN because KERN is China, Iran, Russia, North Korea, and it actually has a meaning, which means counter-influence regional networks. And that is basically what I think has been happening when we were talking about the reshape of the global system and the systemic change that we were working on. North-South corridor, yes, Russia, China, Iran is working on something like that, that connects the north, the Arctic, to the south, an Iranian port. Therefore, we kind of need to take note of that, and we're looking at the other corridors, which are stretching from east to west, because we cannot ignore China in the east, considering how dependent we are on China. And yes, we may want to decouple or de-risk or whatever, but truth is that Black Friday is pretty much built on the concept of cheap Chinese goods, right? So we cannot go forward with no China in the equation. Therefore, connectivity. How do we connect in a world of a disconnect, in a world of competing alliances? We choose the best. We choose the middle road. We choose the middle corridor, in a sense, which is not necessarily a pushback to China. It is still coordinating with China, not necessarily cooperating with China, but working with China, which for the European Union has become a sort of a motto. For the US, not so much. But then again, the European Union needs the transatlantic alliance. And then again, we're talking about a change within the European Union, which is fun to watch considering we are geopolitical analysts here and geopolitical strategists, but it is complex. So again, priorities. How do we do our own north-south corridor and our own east-west corridor within Europe, considering the new containment line? Because we need to zoom in and zoom in and zoom in, considering priorities, right? And one answer may be, and something that was mentioned in our colleagues' speeches here, the Danube strategy, the Danube role, the Danube historical role as a connector or disconnector, and the way that the Danube could play a role in connecting the north to south, as well as building infrastructure that connects the north to south and the east and west. I know it's kind of weird considering the Danube is not naturally seen by us as a connector north to south, right? But we have Germany here who can help us connect north, right? So therefore, if we are an alliance and if we decide at the end of the day that the EU stands together and that NATO stands together and that Turkey, as I've seen some recent statements coming from your president actually, saying that Europe, and I tend to agree very much with this, the European security and the Black security, because I'm from the Black Sea region, the Black Sea security needs to have Turkey in as a major partner. Talking about bridges, well, I say we have a bridge to build on the Danube. Not crossing the Danube, but making the Danube a bridge. And at the same time, I think that it may work for what Velina said about the Balkans, integrating the Balkans. Because geoeconomics has a wonderful feature, and trade in general, and investment in general has a wonderful feature. It can go before politics come in. Meaning, if the people have a need for something, if the population have a need for something, they go buy it. If states have a need for something, then make it work. So, being an economist, I'm a true believer that if there is a need, there will be a will. And therefore, we might have the Balkans integrated in a not necessarily very political way, but in a very political economy kind of way, because they need the economics to work. So, zooming out, will that be okay with our coordinator in the East, China? Maybe, because China also has a need for the European markets, right? As they have a need for the American markets, because their economy also has a need. So, and I think kind of an urgency on the footnote there. So I think we could end optimistically, not only because there is coffee, and I'm happy about that, but also because we could have needs that go to a will, including a political will, to work out the fuzziness in the Black Friday kind of season for international corridors. And with that, I hope I was under 10 minutes. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, also for your patience and also for your insights. I would like to highlight some conclusions. In terms of power, politics, and security dilemma, the Black Sea represents a classic security dilemma where regional security and connectivity objectives are sometimes in direct tension. The Russia-Ukraine war represents an existential conflict that exemplifies realist concerns about survival and power maximization of Russia. In terms of strategic resource control, weaponization of commodities and migration weaponization demonstrates the use of non-military tools for power projections. Other connectivity corridors like IMEC represent competition for strategic resources and influence. In terms of balance of power dynamics, the potential Iron Curtain 2.0 scenario suggests a return to bloc politics, which I think is questionable and also problematic in the same time. Complex interdependence when it comes to economy leads to bifurcation rather than simple polarization or bipolarization or multipolarization. Ukraine's war capacity is directly linked to economic resilience, and maybe we should look to institutional cooperation, which might be a key pillar to develop a coherent vision and to bring the resources, proper resources to improve our environment, our regional environment. The trilateral format for handling security challenges shows preference for multilateral solutions, and here Romania, Bulgaria, and Turkey has an important role for maintaining security in the Black Sea region. And the EU's potential role in addressing regional challenges indicates institutional approach to security, and maybe we should develop more debate related to this issue. Thank you very much to all of you, distinguished guests. I hope to meet you next year again. And of course, we have a very short coffee break, and we invite you to the following panels. Thank you very much.
So I was expecting a Q&A session. You're not doing it?
Okay, if we have time, if we have time,
Sure.
we will pick up some questions. There we have, okay, a question, please.
Thank you very much. My name is Liana Staicu, and I'm working for the Department for Political Defense, Planning, and International Relations. I would like to congratulate the General Staff for this event and all the speakers, distinguished speakers, for the fact that they are here to share their views with us. I want to be short. I have a question for Mr. ÇELIK. We know that Romania is the most diligent advocate for the maritime allied presence in the Black Sea. A maritime allied presence which means more than Black Sea allies. We know that this presence was frozen due to the risk of escalation in the Black Sea, but taking into consideration the new developments of the North Atlantic Alliance regarding the protection of the undersea critical infrastructure, which means pipelines, platforms, oil, gas, and platforms, Romania having this critical undersea infrastructure, which is your assessment for the future regarding this maritime allied presence in the terms which defined previously? Thank you very much in advance for your answer. Thank you.
Thank you. Actually, you know that after Russia's aggression against Ukraine, Turkey used its right to put into effect the Montreux Convention. And from that on, Russia stopped bringing their vessels into the Black Sea. And I don't know if there is any objection of Turkey's against allies' presence in the Black Sea, but as I know, NATO didn't ask for it, and NATO, I think, have a consideration about not to escalate the situation in the Black Sea. I think this is rather NATO's decision than Turkey's decision. But what we believe is more presence doesn't mean more deterrence. And NATO probably assumed that if it enters to Black Sea, then it will escalate. This is what I can tell you.
If you have one more question, please. If not,
Good morning all. General Bogdan, vă mulțumim foarte mult pentru prezentarea dumneavoastră and mulțumesc frumos pentru limba grecească. You said something about efxinos pondos. That means Greek language that is hospitality in the sea. But 2,500 years ago, the name was Axinos Pontos due to the Greek philosophers. That means no hospitality at all. Maybe due to some population tribes there, and also for the Rough Sea. So, mulțumesc frumos again. To Mr. Gavrilov, General Gavrilov, one question, referring something about Brzezinski. Talking about Brzezinski book, The Big Chessboard, there is another dimension, another aspect that I'm thinking about. You said something about the GDP of Texas, about the GDP that is bigger than Russia. You said something about, it's not about NATO, this conflict, it's about the independence of Ukraine, but can you say something more, what about this dimension of having this kind of proxy war in order to implement the Brzezinski's book that we have to split Russia in three parts, Siberian, Asian, and the European part of Russia? Thank you so much.
It's very geopolitical questions. Once again, I mentioned that Russia is very vulnerable as a state due to different reasons, internal, external, and others. So they have a problem, they're the hostages of the ambition of the leader to restore the Russian Empire. At the same time, a lot of cracks and stresses arising inside Russia because of this war. Yes, and sooner or later we will see some kind of black swan events surrounding Russia, like Prigozhin coup last year, unexpected events. But to make these events happen, you have to demonstrate every day your readiness to fight and to do it on the ground. Regarding the future of Russia, it's up to them to decide what is the future. And they have to understand that the longer is war in Ukraine, the more unpredictable is the future of Russia as a state. So there are many movements inside the Russia of ideas, thoughts, and some kind of reflections on what to do, but we don't know how it will happen in reality. It's a very dramatic part of history of Russia now. So it's not Ukraine is fighting for survival now between us. It's Russia is fighting for survival as a state. And so that's the thing we have to keep in mind. That's all I can tell you just regarding any kind of developments, okay?
Well, join me in thanking our panelists. Oh, please.
I just wanted to add something, because we didn't have time to talk about it, I just summarized it as an extinction war, but I just want to add that it has become existential war for both sides from the beginning. And of course, I agree with my Ukrainian colleague, if Russia loses the war now, it's not only over for Putin, but it's going to be about reshuffle of the whole system, the one way or the other. But I would like us to be a little bit more realistic also to go in both directions, because what I lack is, especially in the European capitals, because the Americans, this is a different story, there is no sense of urgency that the war is also existential for all of us here, for the Ukrainians and for the European capitals, because if it goes in the other direction, that means that the prediction of Brzezinski is going to be fulfilled, that Russia will finally fulfill its ultimate goal of becoming this geopolitical empire that stretches beyond Ukraine. Ukraine is going to be incorporated in this new union with Belarus. It's going to be Russified. There is not going to be Ukraine on the map. The very idea that we are not longer discussing the goal that they still want to strike Kiev, that Crimea is an absolute must and is going to be part of any kind of negotiations in 2024 being pushed by the Americans. And then the reorder in Europe, that means a new security order in Europe, that is an order of chaos, of political vacuum, of European states being played off against each other, because some will be cozying up to Russia, some won't. All of these kind of scenarios are scenarios that we need to talk, we need to have conversations, we need strategic planning, military planning, planning also on behalf of the political decision makers.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. It was great to hear about the philosophy and the future of joint exercises, as it was great to see the face of the dark side of the force of NATO war games. We had calm jamming in the back, which is good for any military exercise. We take a half an hour break.